Let's start off with the Olympic Games, shall we? Anybody fancy going to Paris? I don't know if you've watched the Olympic ceremony or you've heard that there's a huge furore which is taking place over the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. Apparently it was watched by 1 billion people. Most of the media approved of it, but there have been complaints from Christians, particularly about this particular scene, which is not terribly clear on this picture, but I'll just tell you what it is. It's a mock-up, really, of the Last Supper. And if you remember the picture of Leonardo da Vinci, I'm going to tell you a bit more about how this works out in the things which are going to be taking place. Apparently, the director of the opening ceremony was a man called Thomas Joly. He's an actor, a comedian, and a theatre director who has explored, quote, LGBTQ plus themes in his stage work, and also wants to assure that in these celebrations show there is room for everyone in Paris. The opening ceremony will only be a success if everyone feels represented by it, he said. Now, unfortunately, one group of people who won't feel represented are Christians, who saw their faith mocked in the blasphemous Last Supper scene and certain sexual overtones and celebration of homosexuality. And if you followed it through and if you actually saw some of the themes behind it, you could see that there was a strong Antichrist theme related to the book of Revelation. By the way, the London Olympics in 2012 also had a strong Antichrist theme in it. And at the time I wrote an article which I just rediscovered, and I was quite amazed to look at it again, just see how much is kind of repeated. Seems that as these great events come together, bringing all the people together, there is this attempt to bring them together under the wrong power, under the power of Satan. Okay, one of the current key things which happened was this white horse appeared. The white horse which then led the nations out from under the Eiffel Tower. You can't see that very well, that is the Eiffel Tower. There's the Eiffel Tower which they came out from, which some have compared to the Tower of Babel. And he led out the nations with all their flags, and there was an idea that this white horse was leading them out as all one. The white horse then appeared on the, again, that's not very clear, but that is the white horse in a picture form on the River Seine as all the boats went down the Seine. So what does the white horse represent? Been a few people have commented on this white horse. Some have said it represents the pale horse of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, horse which brought death. I think rather it actually represents the white horse, the first horse, which if you read in Revelation chapter 6 is the one who goes forth conquering and to conquer, who I don't believe is Jesus. I think it's actually the Antichrist. And in the Revelation chapter 6, the Antichrist goes forth conquering and to conquer on riding on a white horse. And this white horse went out with a rather ghostly figure on it, and behind him came all the nations with their flags behind it. And they were following on behind it in this procession, which then went up from the Eiffel Tower into boats and down the River Seine, with the white horse leading them on the way. Interestingly, on the way there was a sign which said, "We stand and call for peace." Now, one of the interesting things about the Revelation 6 bit is that the Antichrist, or the one who goes on the white horse, goes forth. It says he had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. He has a bow, but he doesn't have any arrows with him. And some interpreted this to say that he's going to come out conquering and to conquer the nations with a kind of a peace program. Bring them all together as one into a one-world system. Now, we know that we live in a world which is today facing huge numbers of wars and conflicts, whether it's Ukraine, Middle East, potential conflicts in actual conflicts in Africa and in the Far East. And if someone can come along and bring some kind of a peace settlement, would they be worshipped as a great person? I think so. But this idea of a unity, and unfortunately it's a unity in peace which is not founded upon God. It's founded upon a rejection of God. Now, next thing which came after the Bring Together in Peace was reference to John Lennon's song, Imagine. Imagine was also used in the 2012 Olympic Games thing here in London. Anyone know that song? And it was sung almost like a hymn. Now, the song invites us to imagine a world without heaven, hell, nations, and religions. Pushes a humanistic idea of people sharing the world in a brotherhood of man. It says, imagine there's no heaven, it's easy for you if you try, there's no hell beneath, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there is no countries, it's hard to do, nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Brotherhood of man. Imagine all people sharing all the world. That's a good idea, isn't it? Brotherhood of man, everyone in peace. Unfortunately, if it's in peace under the wrong force, then it becomes peace under the devil. The only peace is going to come actually through Jesus Christ, who's specifically rejected in this song because there's no heaven, there's no hell, and there's no place for any kind of religion. You also had this rather bizarre picture which came out of a severed head, someone who'd been guillotined, and she was singing. So you can't actually see that, but there's the severed head, there's the person who's singing. Actually, probably a reference to the French, well, it is a reference to the French Revolution, Marie Antoinette, who was beheaded and is seen here singing. It's actually a celebration, if you like, of the reign of terror in the French Revolution. It's interesting, if you go to Revelation chapter 20, it says that at the second coming of Jesus is going to resurrect those who were beheaded for their witness to Jesus and didn't worship the image of the beast. So one wonders whether there is some kind of prophetic thing here about beheadings coming place in the time of the tribulation. Don't know, I wouldn't take that too far. Anyway, this was the one which really got them going. The group of people here along a table. Again, you can't see very clearly, but there's all sorts of quite demonic things here. This woman has got a kind of halo around her head, and she's at the center. She's making a sort of peace sign, and she's sharing out what looks like a kind of counterfeit of the picture of the Last Supper. Remember, again, these pictures aren't terribly clear. I'm sorry about that, but there's a picture of the Last Supper, Leonardo da Vinci's famous picture of the Last Supper. And it's said that this was a parody of it. And you have all these people here gathered together celebrating some kind of a festival. And there's a very strong homosexual thing. There's a woman with a beard. There are all kinds of transvestite and unpleasant things there, all hovering around a child. There's a child actually just here. And I think this is the woman with the beard. But if you look carefully at the picture, there are all kinds of really demonic things, and they're dancing around in a kind of orgy at the Last Supper. And then out of it comes this fella here, out of a bowl. Again, you can't see him terribly clearly. He's a blue figure. There he arises. He's making the sort of peace sign, and he's naked. And he represents Dionysus. Who is Dionysus? He then starts dancing in a very perverted way. Now, Dionysus is the Greek god of wine, fertility, festivity, and insanity, religious ecstasy, and theatre. Also known as Bacchus by the Greeks. And he gives birth to the phrase the Bacchanalia, which were frenzied kind of orgies, if you like. As Dionysus, his wine, music, and ecstatic dance free his followers from self-conscious fear and care and subvert the oppressive restraints of the powerful. His thyrus, which is a fennel stem scepter, sometimes wound with ivy and dripping with honey, is both a beneficent wand and a weapon used to destroy those who oppose his cult and the freedom he represents. Those who partake of his mysteries are believed to become possessed and empowered by the god himself. Does that sound like a good thing to put on the festival? And that's the kind of spirit which is behind it. You've got this kind of bacchanalian demonic spirit. and he was the one dancing on the table at the Last Supper scene. And been a lot of complaints about this, including from the Catholic Church, because they hold the Last Supper as being very important, but also from normal Christians as well, because we see here there is a conscious mockery and a defilement of Christianity. People said they wouldn't do that to Islam, would they? But they would do it to Christianity. And some have said, well, that actually this is a sign that Christianity must be true, or Jesus must be true, because they don't do it to anybody else. They see Jesus as being a threat. Anyway, it went on. You had this rather weird figure carrying the light bearer, the Olympic torch. His face was veiled, and he was almost like a sort of transhumanist thing. So you're seeing this kind of picture of a person who seems to be human but is not quite human, and something going beyond normal humanity. And it ends up with a concert in front of this bull. Now, there's actually no reference to the bull. There's no reason why the bull is there, but why is the bull there? Well, the bull actually represents Baal and Baal worship. If you go to it's Brussels, isn't it? There's a statue of the woman riding the bull, which is taken from Greek mythology of Europa being taken off by Zeus and raped in Europe. So it's a story which has sort of some foundation with Europe and is representing the beast. Interestingly, at the Birmingham Commonwealth Games, they also had a bull which came out. And it seems like this bull is a kind of symbol of power, but of Antichrist power and of something demonic coming at the end of days, a Baal symbol. So you had all these things happening. You had drag queens, you had a transvestite crawling along the floor, you had a decapitated head, a very fat woman with a halo, and all this taking place in public view. And the new establishment is kind of looking at these things with the idea of putting down Christianity. Now, it's a good idea. It's not a good idea for France, for sure. I don't know if you realize the last Paris Olympics was actually in 1924, which was the scene of the Chariots of Fire film when Eric Liddell gave his famous Christian testimony by refusing to run on the Sabbath, and which was used for the Chariots of Fire film. Now it's being used as an Antichrist mockery. So some people said, well, this is over the top, you're just reading things into it. But I think if you look at it carefully, you can see that there's a kind of agenda here. And they're using these events to push a kind of ideology upon people, pushing us towards the globalist agenda. Also, it's not good for France. France is actually in trouble.